Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and you join me today here in the Rover 200Vi exploring the county of Kent. Now you might remember a few months ago we did a little exploration video going around Lincolnshire. Now Lincolnshire is known as bomber country because back in the Second World War a lot of the big bomber stations from the RAF and the USAF were based up there because they were kind of out of range from the German fighters. They couldn't come and be easily attacked. But here in Kent, when the Battle of Britain happened in June 1940, this was literally a live battlefield, but in the sky above us. So we've grown up in this county with the history and the heritage of that all around us. In my primary school, for example, we had this funny low long building for our art and storage, but it was half underground with really thick walls and ceiling. Turns out it was a bomb shelter, and we were still using it many years later. Where I grew up in the countryside, there's a perfectly circular pond, which story goes it was a V1 bomb went off course and exploded in the field. And not far from there I actually found a big chunk of what I think is bulletproof glass from the windscreen of a fighter plane. So we are surrounded with this on a daily basis. And I did a bit of research online, and it turns out there was something like 35 fighter stations and landing grounds across this one county during the Second World War. So today, and what I think is quite an appropriate car, because like the RAF in 1939, bit of an underdog fighting against bigger foes, got the 200Vi. We're going to try and explore a couple of the remaining sites and a few things that are still there, because a lot of these airfields were basically just fields that got turned into landing strips. And so after the war, they quickly went back into farmland, and in later years, they've mostly been built over. So we'll find what we can of what's left. I don't want to take you around too many housing estates, but we'll see what we can find. And there are at least a couple of museums out there we can have a poke around as well. So we saw a Vulcan and a Lancaster on our last exploration. So let's see what hopefully we can find. Maybe a Spitfire, maybe a Hurricane, maybe even a Typhoon. We'll see what turns up. Now on to the first one, which is fairly close to home and was one of the biggest airfields in the county back in the war. But there's really not much of it to see anymore, but what there is quite interesting. In the 1930s, as appeasement had inevitably failed, the RAF grew massively facing the threat of oncoming war, going from 42 to 150 squadrons in 5 years. And while there were hundreds of contributions from individuals and organisations, it is no understatement to say the Hurricane and Spitfire arrived in the nick of time. As the rest of Europe had fallen to the fascists, only Britain was left, and Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of these islands, was planned for 1940. Phase 1 was to destroy air cover, so with the continent only 20 miles from Dover, Kent was in the firing line to meet the incoming attackers. If the RAF had failed, Britain would have been overrun by the evil menace, and they wouldn't have stopped with us, so it's fair to say what happened in the sky above us here in Kent changed the outcome of the war and the face of the world forever. Right, so this is our first stop. If you look on the map today, you'll find this is Kings Hill, but back in the day, this is West Malling Aerodrome, and it's a huge site. It's a shame it's been built over. In the middle of this roundabout, there is quite an impressive statue to the airmen who worked here during the war, airmen and women. And we're going down Gibson Drive now. There's road names pertaining to all the things, and a bit of Art Decoage going on. So these were built by the RAF back in, well, the 1940s or the late 30s, when this got taken over by the military and the civilian airfield. Maidstone Airport, it was called at the time. I guess these were offices and billeting and things. Now it's all just rented office space. I remember back in, must have been the early 1980s, one of these had like a working men's club type bar up in the top of it, because there used to be the Black Pole Free Motor Club used to come here and rally on what was the old airfield when it was still an airfield with an old hangar as a base. Oh, check out that big Art Deco entrance. This must have been offices, well, the main building. It's quite nice that they've been preserved in a way. But this isn't the exciting bit. There's a lot more of this old airfield. Well, a little bit more, I should say, of this old airfield, which is a little bit more impressive than just the old red brick billet blocks. Because this does go back to before the war. This goes back to the First World War when it was a civilian aerodrome, then a school of flying, and at one point known as Maidstone Airport. But all of this was literally the airfield that we're driving over. Now it's just a big old building site. So your granddad used to do car rallying on here.
That's nice.
Used to rally a Mach 1 Escort, I think it was. Okay, this is super impressive. This is the old air traffic control tower from when this was a civilian airfield back in the 1930s. Let's have a quick look around. They call this place Liberty Square now. I think this is meant to be the gallery. Part of the deal of Costa putting up a restaurant there was there's meant to be a museum to the history of this place. Currently it's a little art gallery thing, but it's locked at the moment. So this is the old air traffic control tower, proper Art Deco marvel. And I was really interested in buying this thing and turning it into a house back in, I guess, the 1990s, but it was a completely unrealistic dream because even then, when it was just a derelict shell in a wasteland, they wanted an absolute fortune for it. And now it's a Costa and some offices, so probably worth quite a lot of money. It is an incredible place. I don't know if it'd be a good house or not, because apparently it's quite haunted, if you believe that kind of thing. But yeah, but down here we've got this pretty cool bit of artwork, sort of celebrating what the airfield was back in the 1940s, and its part it played. Guy Gibson, later of the Dam Busters, called West Malling the most pleasant airfield in Britain. It started life as a World War I emergency landing strip for Detling Airfield just up the road. By the 1930s it had become civilian Kings Hill Aerodrome, housed a flying school, and became Maidstone Airport in 1932. It was home to air shows in the 30s and Amy Johnson flew from here. In 1939 the Air Ministry took over and expanded it as RAF West Malling, an advanced aerodrome for RAF Kenley and Biggin Hill. They built hangars and runways which were fitted with Summerfield tracking, metal planks to strengthen the grass so they could be used in all weathers. Although West Malling was out of action due to bomb damage during much of the Battle of Britain, it was a major night fighter station, and from 1944 part of Operation Diver, the effort to defend against the V1 and 2 flying bombs coming across the channel. Concrete runways were laid in 1945, and I have a memory of this, but I can't find evidence of it. Because of the risk of invasion, they were rigged with demolition explosives, which were then forgotten about until a royal visit when police sniffer dogs detected it and couldn't understand why there was such a lot of explosives on the airfield. Being a major target for bombers, the huge building work in recent years has uncovered quite a few unexploded bombs dropped by the Luftwaffe, the most recent being 3 in 2020. So we're driving out of Liberty Square and going past, well, an Aldi, and I think there's an Asda down here as well. And a billion houses, I mean literally a billion houses. They call roads things like Tower View. And we saw Gibson Drive a minute ago. To try and make things feel like they're, you know, in some way related to the heritage of the place. And the fact it was a really significant fighter station in the war, but really it's just a massively crammed in housing estate with an industrial estate off the side. Which is kind of sad, really. In fact, the only sort of proud moment of this place is this Waitrose. Not just because it's middle class and nice, but because they've actually made an effort to make it look a bit Art Deco-y to match the air traffic control tower over there next to it. But yeah, it's unrecognisable. Anyway, next stop is a little memorial which I've never seen before. I've driven past it 100 times and I've never noticed it, so we're going to head down there and see what we can find. Coming off Detling Hill, A249, and heading into Detling Village, where apparently there is a little memorial plaque. So we'll have a look and see. We didn't get the bird, don't worry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It obviously wasn't that good.
But, aha, here we go.
What, the chicken?
The chicken, yes. We'll spin around and... So we've got, hang on, let's just jump out and have a look. I think
That's one more of that little...
yeah, there's a Spitfire on the back of the car in front, so possibly this A-Class in front of us is the memorial.
Yeah.
This is just a Detling Millennium thing, but it is in the style of the war memorials from the 1930s and 40s. But, okay, we'll keep on hunting because I think it's around the corner over there. We found it and there were no chickens involved in this statue. I'm not quite sure whether there's a chicken on the other one, but the pub over the road is called the Cock Horse though. So this is the RAF Detling Memorial, which I never knew was here. I've been to Detling 1,000 times, never spotted this previously. So this memorial commemorates the units and squadrons of the Royal Flying Corps, Royal Air Force, Royal Navy, Royal Air Force, Fleet Air Arm, Army and civilian personnel who served at Detling Airfield. Now, I hadn't really thought there was an airfield at Detling, but it kind of makes sense though, because the showground is just across the way, across the dual carriageway, and it's a massive, massive field on top of a very big hill, so it makes perfect sense. And here we are in Detling with a nice little view of the Rover. Right, so now we're going to head off to an actual airfield that's still an airfield.
Pull you over and you actually fell for it last time. That's kind of your fault. It's got Aaron.
Oh yeah. So we've made it to Headcorn Aerodrome, otherwise known as RAF Lashendon, back in the war. Now this is part of the Advanced Landing Group array of airfields. There were smaller airfields, and there's about 6 or 7 of them all around the Ashford area. And today it's still quite a busy airfield. They've got a cafe over there. My son's over there filming the small Spitfire. There's a lot of parachuting clubs here, a lot of light aircraft and that kind of stuff, but also there's a museum, so we're going to have a little look around. They've got like 2 cafes here, Aerodrome Cafe over there and the Bun Stop or something over there. And just over there past that windsock, I believe, is where you can actually pay to take a passenger ride in a Spitfire. If ever you've seen the 11 o'clock Spitfire flying over my house when I'm filming stuff in the driveway doing car repairs, this is where it flies from. But it doesn't look like much is going on today. Maybe it's just too blooming cold. Let's go and see if we can get into the museum. You probably can't see past that Hyundai, or is that Kia, but there's a high wing aircraft. It looks like it might be a Lysander or something, but it's under a big blue cover. Old World War II plane of some sort. I did just see a sign that said the museum might be closed, but it's a shame if it is. Yeah, big padlock suggests maybe it is shut. So it's a memorial to the squadrons who served here: 353, 355, 356, 403 and 421. 1943 to 1944. I think this was still used after the war as other things as well. The US Air Force might have been here for a bit as well. So it is shut, but outside you can see one little memento or souvenir of when this was an active airfield in the Second World War. This is a temporary steel runway that actually laid across the fields to keep the airfield open, sort of in almost all but to the worst of weather. The planes could still come and touch down on this stuff. And something just fired up. We're going to see a plane go by. And that's airside. Beyond this fence, as low tech as it looks, this is airside. Ground side, airside. We shall see if anything comes out. We have flight. It looks like an old plane, it might not be. On a nice summer's day, this is actually a really nice place to come for a cup of tea and a cake. Just sit outside and watch the planes taking off, the parachutists coming down. Apparently, according to the sign, there's actually wing walking you can do as well, which I've no intention of doing whatsoever. So RAF Lashendon wasn't that exciting, unfortunately. The museum was shut and the cafe was closed as well, so we are not stopping around for too long today. So heading off to the next one, which is a big site, RAF Manston, down towards the coast, heading towards Hellfire Corner. So it's a bit of a drive down that way, but hopefully we'll see some nice scenery. Yeah, annoyingly, the website did actually say the museum would be open today, but we are still in February, so perhaps it's just winter opening times. I'm being too optimistic, hoping that things will be, going on at this time of year. But it's blooming chilly though.
It is.
Yeah, we're going to watch some planes taking off, but it's got too cold. So we're driving a lot of the back lanes and little country roads that really haven't changed very much in really 100 years. So these are kind of the roads that those pilots and airmen would have been driving down in their little MG TAs, I guess it would have been at that point. T-Series MGs anyway. Austin 7s. Who knows what else? Little Wolseleys. They're bombing around, heading to the local pubs and things. Now there's one airfield which was on my list to go and visit, but I had to cross off when I was doing the planning for this. You've probably heard of Biggin Hill, Biggin on the Bump, which is northwest Kent, heading towards London, but unfortunately they've expanded the ULEZ zone and it's just clipping inside it, which is really annoying because it's now a commercial airfield, or airport in fact, where sort of private jets come and go from, And in fact, you get a lot of celebrities coming into London will fly in through Biggin Hill in their private jets. There's a good cafe, there's a new museum there which is really good as well. But I'll be danged if I'm going to pay £12.50 to drive this car, which is really not as polluting as a Bombardier private jet, to drive that way up just for a quick look around and a cup of tea. Maybe I'll relent and take the modern Mercedes up there to just show it to you as an extra if I get time before I edit this. But I'm probably going to edit this afternoon and show it to you tomorrow, so I expect that won't happen. But like I said at the beginning of the video, this is the perfect car, perfect analogy for the RAF in the Second World War, because they went in with a really small air force, not many planes, not many pilots, and a bit of a rich boys club really at the end of the 1930s. They had to expand pretty dramatically. People didn't really take them seriously, but like the Rover 200, it was a force to be reckoned with in the end. Oh wow!
Oh wow!
We've got a flying Morris Minor. So we haven't seen too many cool cars on our walk around yet. There was a McLaren in the car park at RAF Ashenden. Yeah, that's kind of it really. And now a Morris Minor on a shed. Right, we have landed in the village of Pluckley, which is widely known as the most haunted village in the country.
Is that?
Apparently it is. Although there is some talk that a lot of the ghosts were made up for tourism purposes. We have been here on a couple of Halloweens and been informed by a slightly miffed vicar that the only spirit here is the Holy Spirit. Now get out of my churchyard. Although our Halloween does tend to be very, very foggy and misty and atmospherically creepy up here, today it's quite pretty and picturesque. It's quite a different landscape to Lincolnshire, much more hilly, but also quite a lot more little villages. Lincolnshire being much more spread out. We won't find anything like that abandoned garage we found after the Lancaster, because anything like that around here would be snapped up and redeveloped within minutes. We could have kept going on the A roads a bit longer, but we've got 20 miles to go, so we're going to speed things up a bit and fast forward down the M2 down to East Kent. On the side of the dual carriageway, but we're not going to go to McDonald's.
Oh, McDonald's?
We're not going to McDonald's. We're going down here. This is the perimeter fence of Manston Airport, formerly RAF Manston.
Is it McDonald's?
No. There has been a lot of fuss and bother over this place the last couple of years because it's been opened and closed, and it's been a truck stop during the the customs issues. When obviously people can't go through customs quickly with lorries.
I think I'll have to fire up now.
Yeah, it's by your feet.
Oh, is it?
I just turned the camera the wrong way to try and get some of the perimeter fence in, and there was about 3 Fiat Coupes looking very sorry for themselves. Well, hopefully we'll come back this way. But yeah, this is some of the old airport. I don't know what's going on here at the moment. Aha, we're finally seeing some planes. I think we've got a Jaguar there and a Buccaneer, I think. We'll have a proper look around in a second. So we have got, and a Series Land Rover. So we've got 2 museums in one, Spitfire and Hurricane Memorial. And the RAF Manston Historic Museum, or History Museum. So we've got 2 museums in one hit, assuming we can park. Well, we found a parking space. It was a bit of a worry. We weren't actually going to park anywhere. So here beside the road, we've got a pair of museums. We've managed to find a parking space for the Rover. We've got the Spitfire and Hurricane Memorial Museum, which is a free to enter one with a cafe in it. And across the car park, we've got the RAF Manston History Museum, which is surprisingly big, but a lot of nice planes parked outside and inside. A lot to see inside there. They've also got a cafe as well, so we're well catered for cups of tea. Not much to see on the airport itself anymore, but this was a major site. This got massively bombed during the Second World War, so quite often it was actually having to be closed and rebuilt and reopened. So although it's right by the coast and really very, very close to France and getting into Europe, it wasn't always accessible all of the time. That's one heck of a reading light. We've got a couple more bombs as coin collectors, little statue of an airman. And this is interesting, this kind of semi-bulletproof guard post. Might have been situated somewhere on the airfield. A little bit claustrophobic in there. The Spitfire and Hurricane Museum is dedicated to the 20,334 Spitfires and 14,000 Hurricanes that were built, and of course the people who flew them, built them and kept them in the air. And there's a pair of planes restored by the Medway Aircraft Preservation Society here. Spitfire TB752 is a Mark 16 built in 1944 at Castle Bromwich Shadow Factory. That's been Jaguar and Land Rover since the war. It had 15 pilots who were British, Australian and Canadian, and apparently it was a Canadian pilot who, in this Spitfire, shot down the last enemy aircraft of the war. After the war, it spent 30 years outside as a gate guardian at Manston before a nut and bolt restoration starting in 1978 and being brought inside to the museum. The Hurricane is also a 1944 aircraft and after the war became part of the Battle of Britain Memorial flight, and by borrowing parts from other planes to keep it flying became a bit of a hybrid model. Like the Spitfire, it also spent 30 years outside as a gate guardian but was starting to rot badly, so it was rescued and restored too. There's a lot of other exhibits and stories crammed into this small museum, including a wall of German items and a Nazi flag captured on D-Day. For the avoidance of doubt, that was the bad guy's flag. Cut off
Supermarine.
Mark 1A, it's like a really early one.
Looks old.
Will be open in
You can see how
1938.
many time they've got into it.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So this is the inside of the Manston History Museum. We've got a bunch of planes going on, which we're going to have a proper look at in a minute, but it's cool to get a good view up here. So
I've got a magnet.
we've got a magnet.
Magnet.
Thank you. Oh, more planes outside. Got lightning. One of the V-bombers. Lots of Legos. There's a Lego event going on there today. Well, at the moment, I should say. It's like the entire Lego town sets. They got themselves a helicopter.
Oh yeah.
They've got themselves an air raid simulation down here. East Kent. Oh, this is interesting. This is just around Margate, Broadsgaze and Ramsgate, around the coast of, one little corner of coast of Kent. All the little spots are little defence points, either a pillbox or a gun emplacement or a battery. We've got the pointy nose of a Vauxhall Victor. That is a Buccaneer, isn't it? Yeah. Front of a Buccaneer. Surprisingly big, these things, when you get up close to them. One of these is a Canberra. That's a Canberra. Seen from a Canberra. Huh. God, it's tight packed in it. You can tell it's sort of real mid-century technology. It's sort of black, heavy steel and lots of little buttons and gauges. Yeah. Or look inside the Buccaneer. Oh, how to lose your legs. I thought pilots are like really highly qualified and clever, but they have to have labels to tell them which is the front seat and which is the rear seat.
More for like.
Dad jokes. This Wessex is massive. Absolutely enormous thing. The size of these blades, but then I think that's all that's holding this thing up in the air. All World War I stuff, because this airfield does go back a long time. We can have a look inside this one. Mind your head. Oh wow.
This is still airworthy or not?
Probably not anymore.
No.
It have to be serviced so frequently to keep it airworthy. Big old cabin though. Ah, so we've got some of the airfields that aren't here anymore. RAF Sandwich, RAF Ash. These sites aren't around anymore. Oh, it's a Meteor. I thought Meteors were smaller than this, but again, you don't realize how big these things are until you get up close. It's outside the Lancaster Insurance Museum. We've got a V2 bomb as well. Not many of these survive, mostly because they got blown up over over Kent in London. Yeah, this is the rocket-powered bombs, the first missiles, really. Might be, yeah. So it steps out of being a nice cup of tea in the Naffy Cafe to find being threatened by a massive bomb. This is, of course, the technology that the Americans stole to put men on the moon a couple of years later. It's like it's all... No, but the Lightning is an incredible thing. This was like the fastest plane in the world. It could be a Mach 1 going vertical. And across the road, there's the old control tower. And across the way, there is the airport, Manston Airport, and of course, some of the radar. But this is a 3-kilometre runway, so it's like a heavy lift runway, so big planes, like wide body planes, can land here. Into Dover, which is just a couple of miles, about 6 miles from Hawkinge, which would be back up the A20, I guess. This is the gateway to Europe and the start of many holidays over the years.
Bit more than many.
Many. So the ship's coming in on the left. You're going to go to Eastern Docks. That would be out of the country. We didn't bring our passports.
We have passports.
We've got mini passports. Some of them are real. Down there on the left, that was where the hovercraft used to go from. We're driving through Dover with Dover Castle on the cliffs above us. The OG coastal defence for Kent. It's a massive 1,000-year-old beast. It's English heritage now, so the scones aren't quite up to National Trust standards, but still worth a visit. And even though it was built to fend off the Normans, we could have stopped here on this trip, because facing the sea are anti-aircraft guns. But underneath, there is a network of miles of tunnels that were barracks as far back as the Napoleonic Wars. And during World War II, these were used as a hospital and a headquarters, and in 1940, Vice Admiral Ramsay planned and ran Operation Dynamo, the Dunkirk evacuation from here, these tunnels in these cliffs, rescuing 338,000 men from the French beaches in the little ships. During the Cold War in the 1960s, they were even set up to be a regional seat of government in the event of a nuclear war. So that is a fascinating place to explore if you've got a lot of time to go and look around. Oh, we are here. Battle of Britain Memorial. Are we in time? Yes, it's still open at the moment.
At the moment.
Open till 4, so we've got about an hour.
Yeah.
Saw the real one over at the museum over near Manston a minute ago. And we've got this statue over here of a downed aircraft. That's incredible. Is that Stuka? I think it might be. Wow. Yeah, it's a Stuka, isn't it? Which had the red little propellers on the front just to make the noise, so it sounded terrifying as they came down. Yeah, stainless steel sculpture adowned Junkers Ju-87 Stuka. And then we've got the Spitfire. I've got to say, this one does actually look... Oh, it says replica on that as well. It looks very realistic. But yeah, I think there's more to look at in the museum as well, but I left my son in the car because it was cold. So I'll be quick out here before we move on to our next stop. But it's incredible, we've only come like 20 minutes down the road, and yet we've reached yet another museum. That was a very quick run around the Battle of Britain Memorial. Not at Hawkinge, at Capel. My mistake, I was wrong about that. But we are 2.5 miles from something else, which might well be Hawkinge. So I'm going to do a quick 3-point turn and yeah, get back on the road. A quick hello to Alan, who one of my viewers who did stop and say hello at that Memorial Museum. So I thought it was a person who worked there because he was watching me park the car. Turns out he wasn't someone who worked there. There's the brake test.
Working or not?
So far, so good. We haven't crashed yet.
Yet.
Yeah, it's a long way down still. So following the signs to Hawkinge, on the map to Hawkinge, and on a road now called Spitfire Way, which is promising in terms of looking for Battle of Britain, Second World War stuff. I've got Hawkinge east and west, left and right just here. Although apparently we're going straight on according to the phone. There's a branch of the LIDL just there.
What?
According to the phone, we've arrived. Okay, there's a brown sign just there. Oh, Battle of Britain Museum, we are here. Hang on, let's spin the camera around for you as they're coming off the road. This is something I didn't know what was going to be here. Reopens Good Friday, so possibly it's shut at the moment.
Yeah.
It's mad, this is now in the middle of a housing estate, but of course, a long time ago, this would have been just fields at the top of big cliffs overlooking the English Channel. Oh, we've got a Spitfire under reconstruction in front of us. I'll jump out of the car quickly. There's a lot to see here. It's worth coming back here in the summertime or in the spring when it reopens properly. We've got a Spitfire that's being reconstructed just there. We've got a Hurricane just there, another Hurricane. I don't know if they're real or replicas. We've got that twin engine one over there, which I forget the name of that particular one, which looks real looking at that. Something bigger. That flying boxcar, that Ford Trimotor in the background over there. Big, big transport plane, or biggish. Something German and large I can't see around the corner. A tractor, that's cool. And we've got ourselves a bus. It's in very nice condition. Devon General, you're a long way from home. What's this? An pre-RM, I reckon, isn't it? A Guy. A Guy bus. I'm not familiar with buses particularly. But yeah, we're going to have to come back here in a couple of weeks' time, I reckon. Well, I'll give you a quick rundown on the car while we're here. We've done 110 miles since we left home. We've filled up almost completely before we left. Used about a third of a tank. The son is playing something on his phone in the car. It is astonishingly comfortable. Such a nice car to be in, and it's so quick as well. They say classic cars keep up with modern traffic. This thing outruns most modern traffic. It's brilliant. It is, of course, if you're not familiar with the channel, the 200Vi, and this is the hot one. Basically, it's a BRM without the limited slip diff in it. The 1.8 VVC engine, so it's making about 150 horsepower in a ridiculously light shell. Yes, I know I'm missing my door card. That's in the garage at home because my window regulator has broken and I still haven't fixed it. And a previous owner did scrape it against a post, so I need to get rear wing sorted out at some point, but that's going to be quite expensive, so I'm ignoring that. But it is a very comfortable car. It's got unique fabric on these seats, so I don't ever tear them or let anyone damage them in any way. This is just such a cool, fun car. I love this thing. Right, okay, so this is not a lot to see today because it's shut, but if you're in Hawkinge, this is a place to come to. I think this was our 6th place to visit. We've got something at Lymm, but that's just coordinates. I think it's just a field, and it's now getting a bit late in the afternoon. And we've got Denge acoustic mirrors, but I think we'll knock off the acoustic mirrors because it's really cold and it's going to be dark by the time we get there. We'll go there on a different day. Well, it's a shame that one was shut because it looked really interesting. They've got a great big hangar out the back and half a dozen planes So yeah, that would be really quite a cool place to explore at some point in the future. We'll come back after Good Friday. If we'd carried on in the journey I was planning, there's actually 2 more stops we could have made, but it's getting kind of late into the afternoon and it's blooming freezing and it's going to get dark, so we'll knock them on the head. We'll come back on a different day. But this has been really interesting. What is amazing is the sheer volume of memorials, museums. There's just so much of this history. And if we'd gone down towards Lydd and Lymm, which I had originally put onto my list, there's a whole bunch of other airfields down there, because Lydd Airport is another old airfield which is still active, and there's another air museum down there as well. So now, yeah, we're hiking for home. The 200Vi little Vin petrol has done so well today. It's such a comfy little companion on our journey. There is so much history hidden around the southeast, but the relentless building that's been going on has hidden and buried so much of it. It's not just the Air Force, all the services were based around here, ready to head into Europe and of course to protect the home ground. This video could have been an hour long just listing places where things happened, so cramming just a few things into a video this long was quite tricky. If you're living around here or coming for a visit, then do have a quick Google, because wherever you are there will be something worth going to check out. But if you enjoyed this, please, as always, like and subscribe and join us again next time, driving or doing something completely different.